Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown. It is post Super Bowl Monday, and because I was working on Saturday, I got to take my second day off today and use that time to relax and recoup after a long work week and event-filled weekend. And while I was relaxing and recouping, I said, you know what? Netflix dropped something on Friday that I haven't had a chance to watch, and I've been dying to see. So we threw it on, and I gotta say, man, the old Seaman dug it, and for all sorts of interesting reasons. I think this movie's got lots of layers to it, and because of that, and a couple other things, I don't know if everybody is going to love this movie, but ooh, man, it's got some interesting twists and turns. So why don't you pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, on Velvet Buzzsaw. Now, Velvet Buzzsaw comes to us from Dan Gilroy. You should be familiar with his name, as he is teamed up with his lead actor here, Jake Gyllenhaal, once before in a movie called Nightcrawler, which was wildly successful, really cool, dark thriller kind of a movie. And when you saw the trailer for Velvet Buzzsaw, I got a lot of vibes very similar to Nightcrawler, and thus I was very excited. Now, I will say this about Velvet Buzzsaw. It's not Nightcrawler. It is drastically different. It is not so much a dark suspense thriller as it is a dark comedy that is just filled with really dark satire and uses some thriller elements to kind of help drive the story. And the story, it was really just all about the art community, specifically here, the LA art community. But what Gilroy is doing is really delivering a solid, dark, comedic satire about the art world, man. From the characters and the way they act and kind of represent each different facet of the art world. I just think they all kind of play really well. And the things that Gilroy has to say about what makes art valuable and why art will sell or not sell, and the way these galleries work and the way the communities work and the way different people can say one thing which can then affect everything else that's going on. All of that stuff works really, really well. And I think the dark satire stuff works throughout the whole movie. Even when you get into the kind of dark suspense twist the movie takes. It kind of has a bit of a horror vibe to it, which you get in the trailer. But it never kind of dives full in to be like this horror suspense movie, as it kind of just is always continuing to be this really dark satire. And I think the choice that Gilroy makes, and it happens about the introduction of the element of the movie is kind of entered about 30 minutes in, and then about halfway through you really get to start seeing what that dark twist is. And it kind of leads you down a Final Destination type movie, where at the same time, there's like a fork in the road, and you go toward, the satire. If you go the other way, there is a way that a story that could exist that would have been very, very much in line with Nightcrawler, and could have very much been in line by having Jake Gyllenhaal drive that story. And I think that might have been more satisfying for people, because that direction of the story could have answered a lot of the ambiguous questions and mysteries surrounding the artist that this movie surrounds itself with. But if you go that route and you get the more traditional kind of ending that closes everything up and answers all the things you're wondering, I think you'll be missing some of the stuff that Dan Gilroy is doing underneath the surface of this movie. And he's got a lot of layers. I think a lot of things going on. But ultimately, I kind of dug what he did and what he had to say. And within this satire of this art world is this story about a man named Vetral Deese. And he, is an artist who dies in a apartment complex, and a tenant there, Zawe Ashton, finds the body and then finds out that this dude is an artist and has thousands of pieces of art in his room that he wanted destroyed. And she kind of ends up sneaking in there at one point and takes a look and is just enamored with how amazing it is. She's like, I can't just let it be thrown out. The world needs to see this. She takes all of it and brings it to Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Morph Vandewalt, who's an art critic. And I tell you, Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in this movie is absolutely brilliant. I think he absolutely nails what at least the world must think an art critic really looks and feels and sounds like. Because the minute in the trailer he popped up, I was like, oh, he's an art critic. And I just love it, man. He has the arm crossed like on his, that stuff down to a T, and he's kind of out there, and he's eccentric and just so interesting. And I loved his character performance. Whether you like the movie or don't, you should love everything that Gyllenhaal has given you, because he's absolutely brilliant. And, you know, when Josephina brings everything to him, he's kind of enamored and fascinated, like just absolutely drawn to the work. And that's, I think, the thing that kind of locks in for Josephina. This stuff is worth something, because if Morph says it's that good, it's gonna sell. And so she brings it to her boss, Rene Russo, who she's kind of, you know, it seems like the movie kind of references that Josephina was to be Redora Hayes' kind of protege, and has been tripping up at work a bit. So kind of her and Rene Russo are butting heads, and she comes with all this stuff, and Redora Hayes goes right in to, you know, art sell mode. And now, like I said, I don't know much about the art community, but from what I can gather, Russo's character, I think, is responsible for selling off collections to different galleries or personal buyers. And when she gets her hands on everything that Josephina has, she says, okay, let's get her story straight so that you don't get in any trouble, and then we are going to make tons of money off this art because it's so good. Mixed in there, you also have Tom Sturridge, who plays John Dondon, who is the kind of rival to Redora Hayes. So as this artwork is kind of getting out and starting to form, you watch Dondon making moves to kind of poach some artists from Rene Russo, one of which being John Malkovich's peers. And Don is really in there for that conversation. And you kind of get the idea as an outsider that there are people who sell art who will do anything to try to get artists away from each other, so you can be the person that sells it, because that commission check must be real nice on big named artists. And I like what Sturridge did, and I like the kind of back and forth that happens with Hayes and Dondon. And I love John Malkovich. He pops in there a couple times along with one other artist played by David Diggs Damarish. And I think we maybe see a couple of their pieces, like, briefly, but you really you get their fascination with the art of this dude Deese, as they see it at different galleries, and kind of get the feel of, like, how an artist's artwork can, you know, inspire or drive something in another artist. So I like those performances from those two guys. Very, very, very minor. But I like where they popped up, and David Diggs, he's just so cool, man. Every time he's on screen, I just love that guy. But I like that you also get kind of that aspect of it as well. And then you have Toni Collette, who plays this woman named Gretchen, and at the beginning, she's kind of working for a museum art gallery, so is responsible for helping get, you know, certain things into the gallery. There's this big sphere piece in the movie that plays a bunch of different ways, and it's very interesting, and that's kind of Gretchen's thing that leads her to leave the museum and kind of become a buyer for a personal collector, to which he gets his hands on a couple pieces of this Deese stuff, and then she kind of tries to rework a deal with the museum, be like, hey, let's put these two that I have, and I can get you 10 other pieces from Deese to get it up there. And like I said, man, there's so much with all of these different characters. And they all give really, really good performances. Toni Collette is just off the wall sometimes, over the top. And I love it because you kind of get that. It meshes with the vibe that you would expect from someone like her character, as you do with Rene Russo, who's just heartless and cutthroat. You know, and like I said, Diggs and Malkovich kind of just these cool, interesting, you don't know a lot, mysterious type artist characters, and it all works really well, as you then start to find out that there is something else going on with this artwork, and it kind of hinges on Billy Magnuson's character, who kind of pops in and out. He works for Rene Russo, setting up a lot of the installations in these galleries, and he is kind of responsible for taking some of the art away. Russo doesn't want to let the world know that they have all of this art, but they only have a small portion, because that really drives the numbers up in the cell. And Magnuson is like a wannabe artist, and he gets drawn and can't help but open up the crates, and this kind of leads to the first death that we see in the trailers. And there's multiple deaths throughout the movie, and it kind of gets a Final Destination vibe where Deese's, you know, art is causing these deaths, and the only person that seems to be aware that this is happening is Natalia Dyer, who plays this intern-type character named Coco. She's really young. She's kind of bounced around a couple places, and she pops up every time a body pops up after Deese. She doesn't find that one, but she finds all the other ones. And the only other person that seems to realize what's going on is Jake Gyllenhaal, as he is working on the backstory of this guy. Nobody knows anything about Deese. And as he kind of is moving through, he writes like the blurb that goes in for the first gallery, and that blurb he wants to turn into a book. And that's the fork in the road where Gilroy could have gone and stuck with Gyllenhaal the whole movie and kind of follow him as he does all the research on this guy to find out who he is, why his art does what it does, what went into it. I mean, they showed in the trailer that like he used his own blood and human tissue to create colors in the art. So you could go down that rabbit hole and follow Gyllenhaal as he learns more about this guy to maybe tie up some of the questions that are raised as to like, why is this happening? Was he, into satanic rituals and that's why everything's haunted? Or, why is the art come to life and this and that? But what I realized is if you take that road, you might come down a more traditional path that more people might be happy with. By not going that route and really delivering this dark satirical comedy, you get to the end, and after the movie marinates a little bit, you kind of sit there and go, whoa, Dan Gilroy. Like, not everything connected real clean. But I saw it, and I saw the path that you could go, but you didn't go down that road. Why didn't... Oh. By kind of leaving everything ambiguous, Gilroy is enhancing his point that art is really in the eye of the beholder. And what you place on a piece of art is really what gives it its value. So you might watch this movie and be like, I wanted this. Like, I've seen you do things and your art looks like this. I wanted you to get over here. And you didn't. I don't like your art. Or it went down this way. And, oh man, I just loved this stuff. And when you think about it, the ambiguity to the Deese storyline kind of enhances this general kind of dark satirical comedy that is running through this movie start to finish about the world of art and what gives it value, and how, if Morph says this is really good, it's going to sell, but if Morph says this is really bad, it could end a career. And it's very, very subtle, but that concept exists in the movie and really roots itself in Jake Gyllenhaal to a way where he kind of goes down this route and starts to get crazy because it is eating him alive when he starts to realize what his words mean. So here we are, 12 minutes into a review where I'm telling you what I think and what I like, and ultimately, I'm doing exactly what Gilroy is talking about. Things are good or bad based on what value you give them. Or people that really matter give them, right? If you're watching this, it's because you value what I have to say. And I appreciate that, and I like to think I know what I'm talking about. But to rip on a movie or not rip on a movie shouldn't depreciate what the art is to the artist. And I think that's what Gilroy is kind of doing. I think he kind of left this thing ambiguous on purpose because it would probably ruffle some feathers and rub people the wrong way. And at the end of the day, he's good with it. Boom, there you go. And this whole movie just kind of encompasses that whole concept, and it really does function as a wonderful, dark, satiric comedy. So I dug Velvet Buzzsaw, man, and I specifically dug the deaths in this movie. Once the deaths start kind of running and it has this Final Destination feel to what's going on, the death choices are all super entertaining. And like I said, Natalia Dyer, who kind of stumbles across each one of them, she reacts in a horrified way every time. And I can't sit there but laugh at some of these deaths, which really kind of just drives home the fact that this dark comedy works. So there you go, man. Not that my word really means anything, but it might be putting some kind of value on this thing. Those are all my thoughts on Velvet Buzzsaw. I dug it. I think Gilroy is operating on a level where a bunch of different things are going on, and I really dug what he had going on. And then just throw in, whether you like the movie or not, you have an unbelievable cast just with unbelievable performances. So I dug Velvet Buzzsaw, and I definitely think it's worth watching, even if you get to the end and don't dig it as much as you want. Just be prepared. This isn't gonna be as Nightcrawler-ish as I think some people thought it was. It's less of a thriller and more of a dark comedy. So those are all my thoughts, but I want to know what you're thinking, man. Hit those comments down below. If you've seen the movie, did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you didn't like, based on what you can say without spoilers, or mark them as such. If you haven't seen the movie, have we enticed you to see it? I've talked a lot, so hopefully I inspired your artistic juices to want to check this one out. But leave all that down below in the comments. As always, if you're new here, hit that subscribe and little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. And of course, if you dug this video, please give me a thumbs up. So for the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down, I am the Seaman, and I'm signing off. Well, as I live and breathe, you still here? Check out a video like this one, or this one, and hit the subscribe button so you can get alerts and check out everything the Seaman's got at the Cinema Sit Down.